Hello everyone and welcome to another scrapbook layout process video. For this project I'm going to be using the textures paper collection that is in the current core catalogue that will be retiring at the end of this month. I actually haven't used any of these papers and I think I just stashed them away for something special, but I really loved them. I love the texture with this denim look. This side, I've already flipped them around, has a gorgeous speckle look. There's a burlap and a lovely swoosh one that reminds me of paint strokes, a basket weave and a brick. And the zip strips are rather gorgeous too. So I'm going to clear these away. And you can see here I've got the start of my layout. I've cut this on my Cricut and this is drawn on the Cricut as well. And what I'm going to do is some stamping with a brand new stamp set that's called Background Elements. Perfectly Imperfect Patterns is retiring at the end of this month, and this one is in the brand new core catalogue that's just been released. So there's an overlap between the two core catalogues at the moment. So I thought I'd use this brand new set to add some texture to this star pattern. I didn't think I needed another texture element, but I love this speckled edge. I love this very long swoosh area here, and it's got some really interesting designs that we don't have with Perfectly Imperfect. So I've selected this pattern here, and I'm going to do some stamping with shortbread ink, and I want this to come along the edge of this star. So I'm hoping that my head doesn't get in the way when I do this. I'm going to turn my Versamat over because it's got a spongy side, ink up my stamp, and then I'm going to line this up, and excuse me if my head gets in the way, I'm trying to look a bit sideways, and do this area all the way around. Now obviously this stamp isn't quite long enough to do the entire area, so I'm going to mask this part here just with a post-it note, line it back up and go on that edge. And then I'm going to rotate my paper and I'll mask off this area here that I've just stamped and work my way back in towards the center. Now I'm going to make sure that I overlap this so that I get a spray coming all the way around. So basically I just have to keep masking off all the points, so the in points and the outward points of the star, as I work my way around this design. How cool does this look with the splattering all the way around the outside? It doesn't matter if you don't get right up against the edge, or if you go over a little bit, you just do as close as you can, because the effect on this is absolutely gorgeous and I love it with the shortbread colour. This would be really cool as a Christmas layout, but I'm actually not going to do a Christmas layout for this because I'm using the Noteworthy papers and I've got some strips to lay behind this star. You can see here I've already cut all my rectangles. Everything for this design has been cut on the Cricut, and I've also brought in the wood grain pattern that's also in the catalogue that's going to be retiring at the end of this month, because I thought the tones in this wood grain paper worked really well with the textures that I've selected. So you can see here I've got the paint sort of texture, the denim and the basket weave, and I've laid this out, so you might have guessed what I'm doing with this. I've just roughed them up a little bit and I'm going to show you how I did that, but they're all going to be laid onto this star. And so that I kept them in the right order, I've just put them on top of this Cricut mat so I know exactly what order I want to put this on. So to distress the edges, if you don't have a distressing tool, you can just use your micro tip scissors. I keep mine closed because I don't want to accidentally cut myself. These are very sharp, and I'm just running these along the edge. It's quite quick to do, and because this is a longer piece, I just move my hands down just to hold it a little bit and give it some support, and then I'm going to do the same for the other side, the other edge. Now you are going to get some paper dust coming off this. Because our pattern paper has a white core, this brings that out and gives a nice distressed edge and a bit of a contrast with the colours. So I'm going to bring my star back in. I know this is the top, so I'm going to flip that over. So I'm just running some tape runner all the way around the edges of my star to adhere these pieces to. So you can see I've got some paper fluff here. I need to readjust where I was starting from and to make sure that the edge that I haven't distressed is up at the top. I know I need to start about 3/4 of an inch down, and I want to make sure that I put this one nice and straight so that when I lay out the next piece, they'll be running nice and straight across the page. T-rulers are really, really handy for this because they grab hold of the edge of the paper. So there's my first one. And then I'm just working my way down. I'm not pressing too hard. And now that little edge is covered, and that wasn't the case the first time I tried to do it. And I'm pushing them right up hard against each other so that there won't be any gaps when I flip it over. But if there are, I can play around a little bit with the torn edges and flatten them out so there are no gaps. Okay, so before I press everything too much, there we go, I'll flip it over, I can press everything down, and then you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure that these edges all meet up and nothing will peek through, because I do need to put a background paper behind this because the Cricut cuts at 11.5. That's the biggest cut that it will do for a square. So a little bit of tweaking just to get everything in the right position, and so that I've got all these lovely jagged little roughed up areas up next to each other. So I'm going to give this a very good press, and then I'm going to bring in the next elements that I've got for this layout. So I've done a title, and this is where the wood grain piece comes in. And because this is such a lovely piece, I only want to put one photo on this side. There are more photos on the other side, but I think what I want to do is just a 4x4 photo, and I'm going to offset the mats like this. And then I'm going to bring in some of these chevron elements that I've cut on the Cricut. Now I've inked around the edges of this photo mat. So basically I use these placeholders, and then they become a photo mat as well. So I don't need to cut up more white daisy. But while I've got these, I use them. Otherwise I just use white daisy. And that distressing just gives a little added texture to the edges and defines it. So I'm going to adhere these three pieces together, and I love using my Versamat to get everything all nice and even. So you can see that's about 1/4 of an inch off the edges, and then I'm going to adhere the photo mat again, and I'm going to bring this one down a little bit so that it's like 1/8 of an inch with the shortbread hanging out below. So that's going to go here, so I can still see this point of the star, and then this piece is going to go across like that. So I'm actually going to use some foam tape for this. I'm going to put tape runner down this edge, and then I'm going to use actually some thin 3D foam dots. And the reason why I'm using the thin 3D foam dots is because I need to lift this up a little bit because of the distressed edges of this pattern paper. You can use foam tape for this. I just have actually run out of the thin one. I've only got thick 3D foam tape. So before I stick that down, I'm just going to check that that's all going to sit nicely, and then I'm just going to peel these off and adhere it to the page. And then my title's going to go here, so I'm going to do the same thing with the foam tape, and I'm also going to bring in some of these chevrons to go across this area as well. So I'm just positioning these, and I'm going to actually use liquid glue to adhere these. I quite like it when my elements are hung over the edge. So I've started that first one off over the edge of that, and then I'm using liquid glue to adhere the remainder and my T-ruler to help me line everything up. And by using liquid glue, it gives me time to manipulate it and put it exactly where I want it to go. And then I'm going to adhere my title, and I'm going to use the inside pieces from the shaker windows. These are like a 3D tape. They're a bit thicker, but I do love how we can use the inside of these. And then they've got these little sections that fit into these pointy little corners. So now I just need to adhere some of these chevrons on this side. And I'm actually going to adhere this and not put any glue on this section here. I'm going to trim off part of this so that it will fit on the right page. And I've not put any glue under there so I can slip my photo in. So here's my left page so far. Obviously I'm going to need to mat that onto a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. I'm going to audition some colours. I'm not sure if I'm going to use shortbread or if I want to use black or if I'm going to bring in the blue colour. So I want to get these panels done first. I'll just bring in the right page so that you can see what this looks like. And I've done exactly the same treatment with this that I did with the star, and I've stamped that gorgeous splatter that has a straight edge all the way around this in the shortbread ink. So I'm going to continue this line of chevron arrows across onto the right page. I'm just going to bring my T-ruler back in so that I know that I'm going nice and straight. And I'm going to bring in some black. I've got a whole heap of these from my stash, and I want to see how that's going to look. I'm putting it right up against the left edge because obviously I've got this section here that I want to bring in. But then I think it might look good with shortbread, which is what I've done the stamping in. But I think I'm really loving the black. I think the shortbread doesn't give enough punch to the layout. And then I was going through all my blues. This is a brand new colour called Mist, and it's about as close as I could get to that denim look. So I'm going to audition that and see if I like the look of that. And that works quite well, but I really think it's going to be black that works for me. So I'm just going to bring in another one of these, and I'm going to take my Versamat away. And yep, I think black is the winner. So I'm going to adhere all this down. But I think what I might do is add some wooden embellishments. Now, these are all the ones that are available in the core catalogue, the 2021-22 core catalogue that is retiring at the end of August. There is a whole new collection in the brand new core catalogue that has just been released. So I'm just going to use up some of these ones that I've got, and I think what I might do is just put a few of these little stars around. Because there's black in the title here, I feel like I need to bring in some more black. So I've popped one of these stars onto black, and I'm going to cut around that, and I think that might work quite well. I've adhered everything together, and I'm loving how this is all looking. I was going to use some of these leftover pieces to add in some banners and everything, but I quite like how it is just like this. I'm going to bring in some liquid pearls. I've got the onyx pearl, which is like a black one. What I normally do when I'm going to do something like this is to make sure that it's all flowing how I want it to flow before I start, and to have a little practice. So I'm just going to do a couple of little dots around these sections to ground them a little bit and to bring a little bit more black into certain areas. And I think that just gives a nice finishing touch. You don't have to touch very hard at all to the paper. I'm just doing light little taps with this, and I'm hardly squeezing the bottle at all. So that just grounds those pieces in just with a few of these little dots of liquid pearls. And I need to put another one there because I realise I've just got two, and I like doing things in odd numbers. So I'm just going to bring another one over to this side. And then with the liquid pearls, you do need to set it aside to dry. I'm really loving this Textures paper. It's just gorgeous, and the little sprays from stamping around the edge of something with that stamp set. This is going to be one of my favourite stamp sets, I think, out of the core catalogue. I will put some still shots up at the end of this video. I'm just going to bring that up a bit closer so you can see the little bit of dimension that gives, and how there's a triangle from this cluster over here leading over to these 2 points on the right page, and that just brings your eye from the main central photo here across to the photos that are going to go on this side. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy crafting, and bye for now.